Even after a quarter of a century as Indonesia's public enemy number one, XANANA Gusmao was usually not one to publicly complain. But today, East Timor's inaugural president labelled Australia unfair. His country wants a maritime treaty with Australia overturned in a bid for a greater share of oil and gas royalties. Europe correspondent Steve CRITICO is at The Hague.
As a former rebel leader under the Indonesian occupation of East Timor, XANANA Gusmao learnt a thing or two about strategy. These days, he uses those skills as Minister of Planning and Strategic Investment. And he says if his country is to prosper, it will need to have a 2006 treaty with Australia overturned.
I spent 17 years in jungle, 7 years in prison, but I cannot, looking at the common sense, we say, it is so unfair.
The next 2 days of hearings will take place behind closed doors. But XANANA Gusmao has already told the Commission the treaties signed over maritime boundaries have exploited East Timor, depriving it of billions of dollars in oil and gas revenues.
You must understand that at the time, Timor had nothing. Our land was scorched, our people killed by hundreds of thousands.
Under that treaty, 80% of the Greater Sunrise oil and gas field lies in Australian waters. East Timor wants a new boundary drawn halfway between the two countries in accordance with international convention, meaning Greater Sunrise would be entirely in Timor's territory.
Australia's position is that the Commission should not disregard our treaties simply because one party has changed its mind.
The Commission has up to a year to release its final recommendations, but it can't force Australia to act. That's because back in 2002, Australia removed itself from the dispute resolution mechanism, just 2 months before East Timor became independent. If Australia refuses to abide by any findings, East Timor says it will be referred to the UN Secretary-General. Steve CRITICO, ABC News, The Hague.